And check this out. Like I don't know about you, but I'll speak to me. There was something for my first 40 years. I was really, really reluctant to speak this into the world because I thought it was a weakness and I thought it would make me look bad. But instead, I'm an incredible procrastinator. I'm really, really bad. Like it's a big, terrible issue.
Hmm.
And I've started to talk about it recently, like within the last 2 years. And something that I have come to discover is if I'm really procrastinating on something, and I'm not talking about like doing the dishes or like tasks, but I'm talking about professionally. If there's something that I find that I'm just not doing, um, I think it's more about me not really liking it and not wanting to pursue it than it is about I'm lazy, I'm a bad person.
Hmm.
I think it's actually your brain and the universe, God, whatever, telling you, hey, maybe this just isn't the thing that you want to be doing,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So the thing that I think is like when I hear you talk about where you are right now, it's going to be so interesting to see where you're at in the next, 1 year, 2 years even.
Hmm.
Because right now you're tasting so many things,
Yeah.
right? You have your hands in all these things and you're trying to decide, like you're trying to do it all, right? And you're trying, and but you're going, wow, well, some of these things I might be able to give up, but oh, I like all this stuff. I think something for you that I would say is like let that excitement that you feel, like if someone says, oh hey man, you want to come and do this music talk, and you get super pumped about it, pay attention to that. Pay
Hmm.
attention to the joy, and that welling feeling of excitement. I just call it cool. Like it sounds so silly, but like if someone says, hey, do you want to do this thing, and I was like, and I feel like, oh, excited, and I think it's cool, I
Hmm.
follow that.
Hmm.
That's the thing for me that leads to happiness, that leads to money. I live in Minneapolis now. I've been here, geez, man, since the late 90s. But I grew up in Montana. I grew up in the northwestern corner of Montana, a little town called Kalispell. Great place to grow up. Just not a lot of music. And I fell in love with music and the bass guitar. And so then I moved out to St. Paul, went to school there, and then just moved across the river from St. Paul into Minneapolis after I was done with school. And I've been here ever since.
Wow. So the 90s. So do you love it out there? Is it really like your home base? Like you enjoy it, enjoy living there?
Dude, I love it. I think asking me now, it's I have to be like, do I love it? I love it, right? Because it's so cold. I mean, right now we're in a week that it's not getting above zero
Oh my
uh,
God.
for a high. Where
Okay.
are you?
I'm
Where
in
are
New
you at?
Jersey. I'm in New Jersey.
Yeah. All
So
right.
cold, but
So
not that cold.
right, it just gets there are like a few weeks in the winter time where it's like, man, it's like lockdown on top of lockdown. you know?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
something. Yeah, yeah. Man, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Minneapolis yet. My wife and I were talking about how there's so many places in the states that we haven't been to yet that we want to make it to once, the world kind of opens back up a little
Yeah.
bit. So she just actually let me know she's surprising me, which is really cool. We're going to be going to Nashville, Tennessee, which is music, one of the central hubs, musically in the States. So I'm definitely looking forward to that in a couple of months during spring break. So in April, we'll be going out there. So that should be
Dude, that's
cool.
great. Nashville's awesome. I mean, I think Minneapolis too. Minneapolis doesn't make it on the list of like, of course, like big music towns, but it is. There's so much like music and arts and dance and stuff that happens in this city. It's crazy. Like I always feel like I'm like the advocate for Minneapolis and so many music things where people are like, well, you have to be in Nashville, you have to be in New York, you
Uh-huh.
have to be in LA. I'm living proof that you don't.
Yeah, that's incredible. And what's fascinating about that too, Ian, is that like the world that we live in now with so many people doing things digitally and virtually, it really opens the door to really be able to be anywhere you want to be, as long as you're putting out quality content and you're passionate about it and you're steadfast with your goals. Like there's a way to make it happen no matter where you're at, and I think that's pretty incredible, actually. Come to think of
Yeah. Yeah, I do
it.
too. It is amazing.
Definitely. I saw your content, not too long ago. I forget, maybe a month or so, right? I saw your content and as someone who's in love with music as well, I play the piano. I've only been playing for a few years actually, and it's just the best decision that I could have, one of the best decisions that I could have ever made. Just kind of re-getting into this instrument that I've always had an affinity towards as a kid. Took like half a year of lessons in sixth grade and just always wanted to get back into it, but just always the timing wasn't right. But man, just this making content, videos, making videos and engaging with the online audience and playing the piano and learning chords and all these things are just, it's just the most beautiful thing. And I just absolutely love it. So when I come across people like yourself who I could, relate to, and just kind of looking at your content and seeing the intersection of an instrument that you're passionate about, someone who just I don't like using the word seems, but who is comfortable in front of the camera and in your element, and you're educating people about an instrument that you love that you can hopefully inspire others. Like that spoke to me like so much. I think I may have messaged you a while ago and said like, one of your videos that I saw just inspired me to like, get like a little series going with some of these interesting findings on the piano and get my professional camera out, because your videos they're really nice quality and they're on point, and I'm just like, all right, I need to have this guy on, if he's willing to come on. So I thank you for taking the time out.
Oh, dude, it's my pleasure, man. Yeah, I mean, I think just a brief rundown of what got me here. I came up in this little town. I joined this band. I was in this band, and we were a rock band. We were touring in a van, and that life all through my teens and 20s.
Mhm.
Then that kind of ended, and in my 30s, I did just like side musician work, like sessions, playing with other different artists, trying a bunch of different things. And then when I turned 40, I'm 42 now.
Mhm.
When I turned 40, I sort of like looked back on the previous 2 decades, and I was like, okay, one decade was like all about me and my creativity in this band, right? Very like tunnel vision, insular. And then the next one was like blown wide open, and I'm trying to be a yes man and saying yes to every opportunity and
Mhm.
really like tasting a bunch of different things. And then there were things that I loved about it and didn't love about each of those decades, right? And so what I said was, okay, in my 40s, I need to combine those two things. I still want to play with other people, but I also want to have some, at least like, sense of control of my own destiny, right?
Mhm.
Because when you're a freelancer, you just sort of like at the whim of tour schedules and other artists and like, record release dates and all that. And I was like, I would love to have something that I feel like at least I had a say in the schedule.
Yeah.
And so, and I was like, I'm not going to put out like a slap bass record or that just felt silly. And I thought, I think I want to start taking Instagram seriously, and I want to start just making content, and really deciding that to not fear judgment, to
Mhm.
not think about what my indie rock friends were going to say, or my funk Minneapolis scene friends were going to say,
Yeah.
or my parents, or you know what I mean? I just really thought like, I need to do this for me and see if it works and see how it feels. And the whole idea was, I need to be me. I need to decide that it's okay to be me and
Mhm.
to talk about the things that I love, and not qualify things like, I don't know if this is cool, but, or like,
Uh-huh.
oh, it's a guilty pleasure, but I like it. None of that.
Uh-huh.
Like
Uh-huh.
getting rid of that stuff and saying, here's something that I think is really cool. And it's really helped me in this way. Or like, I turn this pedal on when I play for this style of artist, or I reach for this bass, or I put these set of strings on, like very specific niche content for the music community, but really drilled into like the bass community.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I felt um, embarrassed about how much of a nerd I was. And like,
Mm.
I didn't want to show those cards. Like, oh, I'm too nerdy. I'm too enthusiastic about things that don't matter, that aren't interesting. And guess what? If you face that stuff forward,
Mhm.
it becomes interesting. And I feel like it gives people then the permission, in a sense, hopefully, to be excited about their thing. Like, I watch stuff about business people. I listen to podcasts around business. I listen to podcasts around drummers, around baking, like all kinds of things, because I love to see people's journey if they're enthusiastic about what they do. So it's not so much the craft that I'm interested in. It's about how you relate to your craft and how you talk about your craft. That's so interesting to me. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I think maybe that's why, like, you don't self-identify as a bass player, but you saw that content and maybe thought, oh, I could apply this to my own thing.
Yeah.
And that makes me really happy. Like, that's what I'm out to do.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's and thanks for giving that sort of background, because I was curious to know. And real quick before I even say this, around what time was it that you sort of had that realization that I want to try this thing on Instagram? Was that a couple of years ago?
Yeah, dude, it was like midlife crisis. It was like I turned 40 and I was like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to do something? Yeah, it was like right around that time. I was like, maybe instead of buying a stupid like sports car, maybe I need to just assert some control over my own journey and start to talk about it more. And yeah, so it was about 2 years ago. Yeah.
That's what you hit it on the head too. When you talk about like people who are doing, a number of different things that they're passionate about, whatever that thing is, you mentioned cooking or whatever field you're in. What I find so fascinating, so I can totally relate to what you just said, is hearing about that person's journey, hearing about them talk about that thing that they're passionate about. And even specifically people who are, at the top of their game in that specific category. Like, that is probably the most interesting thing to me. Like, I love hearing about, it's like we can get the answers. We can get I don't want to just say the answers, because everyone's journey is going to be different, but we can get some inspiration and ideas about things that we can kind of implement into our journey to kind of help us along as well. And it's just a matter of putting yourself out there, like you just said. And I love that about realizing that you had these things about you that you felt for a time were, you use the word nerdy. And then you realize that I'm going to put this out there and people, and see what people, you don't know how people are going to perceive it, but you, at the time you did. And now, again, looking at the content and being able to inspire other people the way that you are. And, I may have I think I messaged you recently too, after we scheduled this, and I was just on Instagram and I saw that you were doing a live the other day. And I forget who it was with, but I said, I haven't seen you on Instagram live. I don't think, I'm not always on the app and stuff, but I haven't seen you often at all on live. So I said, let me click in there. And I had like a few minutes before tutoring sessions. And man, if you didn't say something profound in there in those 2 minutes, I was like, dang, I was like, man, why do I have to leave right now? I think I even messaged the guy and told him, I was like, yo, hopefully, you could post this. And I haven't rechecked to see if he posted it or not. But you were talking about, and I want to get into this because I purposely didn't do a lot of research on this other, like on what you're kind of doing aside from what I can see. But you were talking about how, like, if you're into someone who's making content and this person may have a bigger sphere of influence than you, so they've been doing it longer, maybe they have more people that they know or whatever the case is. You were talking about how, correct me if I'm wrong, how like you could kind of put yourself out there and assist them in a way to kind of see if there's anything that they can use, use a little bit of help with their journey, and without any sort of semblance of like you being like, oh, I'm hitting this person up to get X, Y, or Z from them. I'm putting myself out there to help them because I enjoy what they're doing, and who knows what the future can hold with that. But that really, really spoke to me so much. I haven't like applied it explicitly yet, but I'm thinking about how and when to with some people that I've been following,
Dude, 100 million%. I mean, there's so much that I want to say about it, but I'm gonna try to focus on this point. So yeah, that was with a guy named Javier Sinobas, who makes bass cabinets, and he's such a cool, thoughtful dude. And he sent me a cabinet that he made, and it's awesome. And he does this podcast, and I think he's about to explode because he's a wonderful guy, makes a cool thing, super thoughtful. Like, he's going to be a player in the community for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I get messaged a ton by people who are asking for things. Like, they're like, hey, what pedal do you use? What strings do you use? How do you set this thing? How can I get the gig? How, and it's all asking of me for like secrets or information, right? And
Mm.
I don't actually mind that. I'm totally happy to answer the questions. I actually really enjoy answering questions and engaging with the community. I try to respond to every DM. I try to respond to every comment. There was a time that I saw, oh, like the cool guys that I follow aren't responding to comments. Maybe I should do that. But that's all just false. I mean, I think that you should treat social media like you treat a face-to-face interaction. Like if you said hi to me on the street, I wouldn't ignore you.
And just walk away.
Do you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? And
sure.
especially if you came onto my page, like if you saw me on the street and you were like, hey, man, I really enjoy what you do, I wouldn't pretend not to hear you and walk the other direction. That's
Yeah,
insane. So
yeah.
why should we do that on social? Like, I feel like it's just people. We need to remember, like, there's so much negativity on social and about social, but
Mhm.
if you can distill it down to, these are just people, right? And so if someone leaves you love, like, why not return love? I mean,
Yeah.
that is so basic to me. Like, treat people like, I mean, the golden rule. So I try to respond to everyone, but what starts to happen when your numbers get higher, and I was just talking to a great bass player named Tim LaFave, who's incredible, kind of in like the avant-garde jazz scene, but he was playing with Tedeschi Trucks for a while. Now he's in the Black Crows. He's like one of the dudes in the bass community. And he was saying to me, like, man, I get hit up 50 times a day with kids just like asking me, like, how do I set my pedals and stuff? And he's like, and it's exhausting and I can't answer them all. And I said, dude, what would happen if someone hit you up and asked you, hey, like, I am really good at video editing. I would love to like make some content for you or like send you a beat to check out, and like, and then would you be willing to answer a question for me? Like, and he was like, "Oh, that would resonate. That would bust through the noise." And
Wow.
I was like, "Yeah."
Wow.
So here's what it is. And then I'll tell you my own personal experience with this too. Here's what it is. It's about giving value to someone. It's about not assuming that the big shot that you're DMing is not a person. Like so many people DM, I don't know, Drake or Gary V or whatever, and assume that they're a machine, but they actually are people.
Mhm.
And they need things like normal people need. They want to be admired. They want to um, to be provided value, and they don't just want to give of themselves, right? So my thing is, why not reach out and say and talk about what you're good at and then offer that for free? Like if you're hitting up a monster player in your industry, like it is insane to be like, hey, check out my thing. Hey, spend your time to put me on. That's insane.
Mhm.
And it will not, I mean, maybe one out of every 1,000 asks like that. But instead, if you said, I'm great at beats, I'm going to send you 5 beats and use them. They're a gift. I hope you enjoy them. And
Mhm.
then zero, then not like, oh, bro, now how can I get that co-write? No,
Yeah.
no, no, no. A
Yeah.
gift, a
Yeah.
gift without any expectation of a return. So what happened for me, let me give you an example. There's a guy named Scott Devine who runs this thing called SBL, Scott's Bass Lessons. It's the biggest online music educational platform in the world, regardless of instrument. So it's bigger than TrueFire, it's bigger than Fender Play, bigger than anything that anybody's doing, regardless of instrument.
Wow.
And I love this guy. He's from the UK, lives outside of Leeds, and I've been watching his content for years since he started putting it up on YouTube before he had his academy. And I just hit him up and said, dude, I'm such a fan. I love what you do. I'm a player in my little community and I think I'm good at X, Y, and Z. And if I could ever be helpful to you, just count me in 100%. Like if you see my content and you go, oh, this dude would be able to help me for X, Y, or Z, I'm in and I'll do it for free
Mhm.
for as long as you want me to.
Wow.
And he hit me right. I mean, he hit me right back. He started to follow me. He checked out what I did. He saw that I was good at it. And then he was like, dude, this is so great. I feel like you'd be useful in all these areas. And forget that free stuff. Like, I'd love to pay you for this. Like, I'm going to think about this and let's dig in. And Then it didn't happen for a while and I didn't get discouraged. And I would just hit him up occasionally and be like, man, I love this thing that you did. And it was real. I mean, I was really a fan.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we didn't get to work together, well, I wasn't going to hold a grudge.
Mm-hmm.
It was really just natural. Like, I'm like, dude, I love you. So holler at me for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did. I made him a little, a course around like effects and stuff that I do on the bass. He liked it. We did some more stuff. He actually offered, he was like, would you be willing to do like an Instagram takeover and do stories for me? Because that's something I love to do. And I'm like, yes, of course. And then he offered me a job, you know? And so then I came on part-time and had an amazing experience. And now we're trying to figure out how I can come on full-time. And I mean, dude, it has changed my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I would have hit him up and said, hey man, I'm great. I'm the greatest bass player. I do this. You need me. You know, if I like that puffy chested, like BS, like fronting, like if I flossed to him, he would have been like, okay, you know, because he's a person,
Right.
you know? Right. So, and one more thing on that, one other example. So I've been on this a lot lately about every creator, like music creator, seems to have like a place where they store ideas, right? So for me, it's my phone and voice memos. I'll think of something and I'll be like, oh, you know, hit that and like, you know, I'll sing something into my phone, or maybe I'll play something, and then there it sits, and I have hundreds of them.
Yep.
And a long time ago, I pulled one up that I was feeling. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like a slap bass thing, but it didn't seem 100% me. Like it felt like maybe it would resonate better with my friend Corey Wong. And I've known Corey for a long time. He's his own. Do you know who Corey is?
I don't.
He's a fabulous guitar player. He plays in a band called Wolfpack, and he also has his own thing. He's from Minneapolis. He's like a guitar. If you're into guitar, he's like a household name now, okay, like in that scene.
Gotcha.
But this was before he was, okay. And I had this voice memo, and I was like, I'm going to send this to Corey. And I sent it to Corey and said, I don't know if you feel this or whatever, but it just, to me, sounds like you. And if you want it, I don't know. I just thought of you. So I'm sending this to you. Mm. And he hit me right back and he's like, dude, this is cool. Like, let's write it. Like, come over. I went over, we wrote the tune, we went and had Chipotle, went home. I didn't think much of it. And then he put it on his record. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, so the thing that I've been saying to people who are creators is take something that you've done that you think is good and give it to someone that you admire. Give it to someone who you think it may be useful for. Mm-hmm. So I do that. I try to do that like once a week, where I have a little voice memo thing and I'll just send it to someone. I did it recently with a friend in Minneapolis. So I just had this like bass chord thing that sounded kind of rock. And I sent it to a friend of mine who does that stuff. Mm-hmm. And he wrote some lyrics over it and sent it back to me. And we started this process of writing a song, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's possible to create your own destiny mm-hmm. and work by giving mm-hmm. without expectation of the numbers it's going to bring back, the money it's going to bring back. But it's about like the gift of that, even just for the like relationship equity that it seems to produce. Yeah, it's worth it. Even if it goes nowhere. Like you might send a piano thing to somebody and it may not become a hit song, but they're going to be pumped that you sent that to them. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to be like, oh, I wonder if we should hit Kevin up to do this thing that's coming up next month. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it just seems to have legs. And so that's like one practical, I know I've taken a lot of time talking about this, but that's like a practical thing that you can do that I feel like, I mean, and it doesn't matter if it's video, if it's baking, give cookies to somebody, right? Mm. If it's like painting, send a painting to somebody. Like give your stuff to people that you admire. And what it will lead to, I think, like if you're good, what it will lead to will change your life.
Man, I absolutely love hearing stories like that. And I knew that those, 2 minutes of just a little bit of it that I was able to hear in that live, I knew that when I had a chance to hear the entire thing, that it was gonna move the needle with me, and that I know that it will move the needle with whoever's watching this. Because you have to figure, like you just said, man, two things. One, hearing from someone who is who is kind of doing similar stuff in terms of doing some content with their passion, like what you're doing, and hearing a success story like that, and how you did it in an organic way specifically, um, is hugely eye opening for me, because I've been that's always been my sort of philosophy, and my mindset is like very much just being myself and trying to be just a nice person, someone that people enjoy conversation with, and giving back and all these types of things. And that's kind of why I started the channel, right? When I decided to start this YouTube channel, I knew that that the first bit of it was going to be sort of me introducing myself and me talking about these experiences I had working at Verizon, and experiences being an engineer, and just different things that I kind of experienced to kind of help, to kind of make me who I am today. And then little by little, I'm saying to myself, Ian, I'm like, like I've had some phenomenal, incredible conversations with people one-on-one over the years, and even up until the point about a year ago when I started the YouTube channel. I had such amazing conversations that I was like, man, first of all, like I would love for other people to be able to benefit from these talks, and not just me. And second of all, there's like, it might sound basic, and I mentioned this in one of my previous episodes, but like everyone has a story to tell. And what's to say that this story that you and I are talking about, that you just shared with me, someone overseas is going to hear this, and they're in a maybe a bit of a rut and not sure about like something that they can do to kind of uh, revitalize or kind of inspire them a little bit more, right? They feel like they're talented, or they are talented, but they're just not sure how to traverse a little bit. Like sharing these stories and being a platform to allow people to do that is one of the dopest things for me. And it's interesting because right now, with the content that I'm making, Ian, there's the conversation podcast, video podcast style, like what we're doing. And then there's piano, straight musical compositions, and other, not just piano but like beats and things like that I do. And then there's unboxings and stuff like that I'm excited about, a new toy that I got to have an unboxing. So when you look at these different content, and I say to myself, like on the YouTube front, right? Being a YouTuber and seeing that the latter of the three, so like not the podcast, not the my beats, but the review of this app, or the review of this new MIDI keyboard, or unboxing, those are the things people are looking for. Those are the things that get a ton more views than the other content. However, what's fascinating to me is, wouldn't you know that that story that you just shared to me, that is miles more valuable to me, and I think it's going to be to others who hear this, than views on YouTube, for example. And I had to retrain my brain a little bit with that, because when I started the channel, I had a goal, and I still do have goals to kind of grow it and grow it organically and stuff. But I also have goals to make sure that whatever it is that I'm doing, it's something that I enjoy doing, something that's fulfilling to me, and hopefully something that is inspiring and motivating, to others. So to that point, the point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to having guests on, like right now, Ian, I have about 8 or 9 interviews that I've done already, right? And that have not been released yet, right? So like maybe from months now, where I'm like slowly every week putting one out. But some weeks I'll interview 2 people. Like today, for example, I have 2 interviews today. And so what happened is, and you might be able to relate to this, at your 40 midlife crisis that you mentioned. I have realized that, I was talking to my wife yesterday. I said, Jess, I have way too much going on right now. I have my teaching full-time job. I have my tutoring business, which is about 15, 20 hours a week. I have the stuff that I'm passionate about, like my Reddit live stream on the piano. And then always there are these ideas that are just always coming up. And I have a board, right over here. It's kind of hard to see,
Yeah.
right next to the window, with just these ideas that just come up constantly, which is, as I learned, a great thing to have ideas. But I've learned that I have to kind of strategically go about them. I can't do everything, but I might be able to get to everything over the course of, it doesn't need to be this year. Maybe this idea that I have of putting out merch or something like that, maybe that's not critical to happen right now. Maybe I'm not, maybe that doesn't need to happen now. Maybe that can happen next year or the year after, the year after. So like what I'm kind of thinking about is just being able to, it's a lot that I've just said, but like sort of have a little bit more structure to what I'm doing and really think about what is it that like my main goal is. And one of my main goals is kind of what you just said earlier, which is I would absolutely love for the things that I think I'm good at, which are coming up with musical ideas from scratch and turning them into, let's say, part A of what can be a really great instrumental song. My music is, and I've had to learn this too, when it comes to people who produce and make beats and things like that, I've learned that there are sort of different styles to it. The style that very much resonates the most with me and where I see myself as, really good at, is sitting in front of a keyboard with a whole bunch of sounds on it, or my iPad, and having nothing to start with, like no sample, no musical idea, no loop, and just playing something and then being like, that sounds good. What about that same melody with like this instrument, mixing it up a little bit, and then having just like a really great sounding loop that I'm like, this would be dope in a video game, or this would be dope in a commercial, or anything like that. And so that's kind of like where I'm moving towards. So I'm really excited about applying what you mentioned and finding the, I guess and finding the person who maybe I've been following for a while, and I go into their lives and show love and that kind of thing. And I have one specific person in mind that I'm, building rapport with organically. And yeah, just finding a way to do something for that person. Maybe it's a video, like rather than, reaching out and asking him to be on an episode, which eventually can and would happen. But maybe there's like, I know that he cares about his Instagram and his content creation and stuff. He's like always on live. And it's so cool to me seeing him. I don't even see the work he's doing. He has it like the camera on him, and he's doing some music production, composition stuff, and it sounds always so amazing. He gives little tips and things like that. I'm like, this is extremely valuable to me right now, just kind of vibing with this. And so like just thinking about what could someone like him benefit from that I could bring to the table. And that's right there, man.
That's the ask, man. And that's the thought. And there is an answer for that question for everyone. There's not a single content creator or single like mega star, or I mean, and like I feel like maybe Drake was a bad example, because sometimes people like that, it just seems so untouchable. I don't know how much they're even in control of their own social, but even like I would encourage people to check out creators that are, in their town, or like anybody that inspires you that's even like your friend. It doesn't have to be somebody huge. It doesn't have to be Taylor Swift. Like what if it's the person that you want to make music with that, has less followers than you, or like, show them love, like see how you can help them out too. It's just about like the good vibes, and the value that you put out will come back. And I mean, I was thinking like when you were talking about doing the thing where you like to start from zero, dude, that's huge. Like if you did a thing, I was just thinking, like my brain was racing when you were talking about that. If you did stuff on multiple platforms, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, where you're like, hey, do you ever feel like your creativity stops when you're starting from zero? Like, then you'd be like, for me, that's where I thrive, starting from zero. It's called starting from zero. You know what I mean? And then you do a thing where you talk about when you have nothing. What's that like? You get behind your process of like, what's that first seed for you? Is it a sound? Is it a chord shape? Is it a texture? What does that draw? Does it draw on records that you love? Does it draw on movies that you've seen? Like get in, understand that process for you. And then you'll be able to help people out with that. Like for me, when I see movies, it almost to me sort of happens when it's unexpected. Like if I hear a sound or hear a song and I'm not like listening to a record, or like when I'm watching a movie and I hear a sound. like I was just rewatching the two Blade Runner movies. I'm like a big sci-fi nerd. So I
Nice.
was watching those two movies, and there are these sounds in there that I was like, ah, I wanted to just run upstairs and grab the bass and try to make those sounds. So
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes for me, it's like a sonic thing
yeah.
that inspires me to want to get creative, right? And then I end up using that stuff on people's records. Like they'll send me a song to play on, and I'll be like, oh, I was just watching Inception, and there's that. They're these,
Yeah,
incredible. I
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
Hans Zimmer, you
Yep.
scored that, and then I want to find a way to do that on the bass guitar, and that's endlessly inspiring to me. But for you, dude, like what I would tune in to for you is that thing of like starting from zero. Like,
Mhm,
man, that is a barrier to so many people. So it's unique. You
mhm,
need to know this about you. It's unique that that's where you are excited. Like when
mhm.
there's nothing, that could help unlock so like a creativity unlock for so many people.
Wow. I love that, man. That is what it's all about. It's hitting those things, the things that you're good at. And like I love how you also said to just because it comes naturally to me, I should try to like maybe next time, which will probably be later tonight. Matter of fact, I gotta share this. So I have a Roland Phantom 61 key keyboard over here, which is their flagship keyboard. Bought it a couple years ago. And yesterday, sort of big news for the Phantom family, they just had a new update on it, which now allows you to install, which I did, four of the classic Roland synthesizers from like the 70s, 80s, etc. And now this thing already has like an enormous, maybe even overwhelming amount of like sound capabilities in it as is. But I was just messing around with some of these other like new ones on here. I'm like, what is this? So like I'm gonna spend probably all night tonight. Like once the day is kind of done, I'm so excited about that. And I love the fact that you heard what I was saying and clearly see the passion and realize in the people that you've spoken to that this is indeed a barrier for them, but being able to think about and articulate clearly, right, to for it to be of assistance for people in a way that's fun and creative and looks good, like your stuff, high quality video, looks good, it's you, it's your personality, it's just like, and it's consistent too, it's a consistent flow and people know what they're getting on the channel, on the feed and everything like that. So I really appreciate the suggestion. I'm definitely going to add it to the list and prioritize that as something that really could make sense. What I've been spending a lot of time with recently on the piano specifically is so piano, there's people that can play by ear, which I can do pretty well. There's people who can see a sheet music and just play it without really thinking too hard. That's what I struggle the most with, but I'm getting better at. And right now, and you're familiar, of course, with lead sheets, which they might be called something different for guitarists,
Yeah.
but like just the names of the chords, right? And
Yep.
so I've been spending time looking at lead sheets and specifically like this. Have you heard of the app called, I think it's called Ultimate Guitar?
Yeah, for sure.
You know about that, right? So I was looking for a place where I could find popular songs, just the names of the chords and the lyrics. So I'm starting to get into singing now too, which is a whole nother thing that I love doing on the microphone and on Reddit Live. And people are super supportive, and I love that so much. Just getting into a zone like that. And so, yes. So what I'm loving right now is getting really good at, like, right now I'm maybe doing a few different songs. I'm doing like "Isn't She Lovely," for example, right?
Mhm.
So looking at those chords, just the chord names, and being able to play them pretty quickly on the piano, and not just the chords, but how to go from this chord to the next using inversions and the least amount of jumping around on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Like that was a huge unlock for me. And seeing how interwoven all of these songs, or not all of them, but so many of them are. Like I forget exactly the two that I was playing. I think it was a jazz standard, like maybe "Fly Me to the Moon" or "Autumn Leaves." One of those songs I've learned when I first started playing, and then I was looking at the chord chart to a Fuji song. It might be Killing Me Softly. It might be that song. I forget exactly, but like the chord structures were like almost identical, and I love
Yeah.
seeing those types of things so much because it's like everything is pulling from something else, and if you just change the rhythm a little bit or change the sound, the soundscape that you're using, you can and the tempo, you can make it sound familiar to a listener but different enough where they don't know that this is where it's from. And that's like another huge, like, I'll do some content on that too, to say, this is how, if you do get stuck, this is how you can start. And why don't you just tweak one or two of the chords in there to make your own? I've been doing that. So much fun, man. I really do
Oh
love
yeah. And that's, it's such a powerful thing to realize that, like, oh, this language of music, not every song is its own language. It all actually rests on a common language. I mean, especially if you're talking genre. I mean, if you're talking about pop music, in the big sort of umbrella of popular music, there's only 12 notes. And
it.
if you're in one key, then there's only seven. I
Yeah.
mean, and so arranging those notes and rhythms, I mean, you find so much similarity. And sometimes I think there's a real danger in the beginning. People are like, oh, well, that's bad. Then simplicity, 3 chord songs, 4 chord songs. Oh, that's so easy. But I have always looked at it like it's incredible,
Mm-hmm.
because even if you do the same chord progression as 1,000 other songs, one small, like you mentioned, rhythm or melodic tweak, lyric makes it your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot with my students. I do a lot of stuff where, okay, we're playing a Stevie Wonder tune. Like I was just playing Sir Duke with
Mm-hmm.
a student, and like there's that line, boom, a boo a okay.
Mm-hmm.
What if you didn't boom, a boo now suddenly it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
You changed 2 of those notes and now you own this. I mean, now this is your idea,
Yeah. Yeah.
derived from somewhere else, but that's fine. And I think, boy, I think that's a really cool, powerful aspect of the language.
Mm-hmm. Man, that you hit it right on the head. So you teach guitar lessons as well, like one-on-one?
Yes, I don't do it as much anymore
Mm-hmm.
because I'm finding I'm on with this SBL Academy, and so I'm doing a lot of content and stuff for them.
Yeah.
But I have a few students that I do one on one, and
Nice.
it's a blast. I really enjoy
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, I could relate too to that. Like I have a couple, I have about 3 students now that I'm doing piano lessons with. I just recently sort of started offering that in addition to my math tutoring when I felt as though when I felt like I had something that was definitely valuable to the students, right? Like my piano instructor, who I'm not working with anymore, now I'm kind of going solo, and she's giving me a ton of info, and now I have things that I can practice on my own. Now it's just a matter of um, like having the discipline and things like that I'm kind of
Yeah.
getting better at. But she mentioned to me, like on like one of the last sessions that we had last year, when I was telling her I was thinking about starting to offer lessons, and it resonated with me. She said that, there can be someone who's been playing 20, 30, 40 years, and they can be an absolute amazing piano player, but they can be a bad teacher for various reasons. And then there could be someone who has started recently, like you, Kevin, and you can understand the basics and you could be learning in the process, but you could be an amazing teacher. And it resonated with me because I felt prior to that I was like, man, I'm only scratching the surface as an intermediate piano player at the time. Now it's I'm definitely intermediate for sure. But I was like, are people going to find value or pay me money to teach them something that I'm still learning right now? That was like my thing. I didn't want to just do it just because I thought it was a good idea. But man, if it's not one of the more rewarding things, especially, I have some young students who, a third, fourth grader, who are just like, you can tell they're practicing every week and you can see how excited they are to learn. And of course, everything is still virtual now, but it's so rewarding. And man, just having like this mindset. A couple of years ago, so I worked for Verizon for 12 years before becoming a teacher, and I did engineering, things like that, and marketing, all different types of roles there. And it's so cool that I had these ideas about, man, I really want to do something that I'm more passionate about, like, and be able to earn, have an income from that. And I didn't know exactly what it was at the time, but man, if things aren't really like shaping up in a way where, sooner than later, I can see myself, stepping back from hopefully they don't listen to this, or we'll see when the episode goes out, but like stepping back from the teaching aspect, right, full time, and having a select number of students that I'm working with, whatever that quota is, or however many I can kind of fit in the schedule, and then open up the door to like be able to spend more time with the music and the content creation, and being intentional about some of the things like you were mentioning, like what is the thing that I can bring value to, make it entertaining. I think I know what it is from your suggestion earlier, and that's exciting to me, to have that type of like light at the end of the tunnel. And even though I wouldn't even say that right now, I'm working, like there's so much going on. I was telling my wife yesterday, like these weeks now are quite intense, as I think I mentioned earlier in the episode, just in terms of so much stuff. So I'm trying to figure out, like this week actually, like what are some of the things that I can kind of take off for now and maybe revisit later. But man, it's fun, like you said, controlling your own destiny, and I'm really really loving it.
And check this out. Like I don't know about you, but I'll speak to me. There was something for my first 40 years. I was really, really reluctant to speak this into the world because I thought it was a weakness and I thought it would make me look bad. But it's that I'm an incredible procrastinator. I'm really, really bad. Like it's a big, terrible issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started to talk about it recently, like within the last 2 years. And something that I have come to discover is if I'm really procrastinating on something, and I'm not talking about like doing the dishes or like tasks, but I'm talking about professionally. If there's something that I find that I'm just not doing, um, I think it's more about me not really liking it and not wanting to pursue it than it is about I'm lazy, I'm a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually your brain and the universe, God, whatever, telling you, hey, maybe this just isn't the thing that you want to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that I think is, like, when I hear you talk about where you are right now, it's going to be so interesting to see where you're at in the next 1 year, 2 years even,
Mm-hmm.
because right now you're tasting so many things,
Yeah.
right? You have your hands in all these things and you're trying to decide, like you're trying to do it all, right? And you're going, wow, some of these things I might be able to give up, but oh, I like all this stuff. I think something for you that I would say is, like, let that excitement that you feel, like if someone says, oh hey man, you want to come and do this music talk, and you get super pumped about it, pay attention to that. Pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to the joy, and that welling feeling of excitement. I just call it cool. like it sounds so silly, but like if someone says, hey, do you want to do this thing, and I feel like, oh, excited, and I think it's cool, I
Mm-hmm.
follow that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing for me that leads to happiness, that leads to money.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if there's a thing where you're like, oh, I should be doing this because the YouTube algorithm really prioritizes these things and it kind of forces my content in this direction, and I want to drive that, and then I want to get ad revenue and start to be a YouTuber, and you love it, great. But if you find after a year, if you're like, oh, this sucks, maybe it's time, maybe then you pivot, right?
Yeah.
Because being in charge of your own destiny, it sounds great, but it's also a ton of work.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be work that you're excited about. It needs to be work that you wake up in the morning and you get filled with that feeling of excitement because you're going to spend time on music, or you're going to do an unboxing. I'm not putting any judgment on, oh, this is cool or this isn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's you. That's internal for anybody watching or listening. Like, whatever you get excited about, genuinely, if you wake up and feel dread, that's the stuff to move away from.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Yeah.
wake up and feel excitement, that's the stuff to lean into.
Yeah.
And even if it feels like, oh man, there's no money in it, I don't know. I think if you figure out a way to talk passionately and make content about the stuff that you love, no matter what it is,
Mm-hmm.
it will lead to opportunity and money. And it might be 40,000 a year instead of 140,000 a year. But what if you're happy?
Yeah.
That's a big deal. It's a
Huge.
big deal, right?
Huge.
So for me, I mean, I'm still trying to figure that stuff out. And I feel like, it's like late in the game or whatever. I feel like things are just starting for me where I'm like, wow, there's these opportunities coming in, and I have to be choosy about how I spend my time and energy.
Hmm.
And I'll do something, and then I'll always ask myself, did that make me feel excited? Was that cool? Did that give me that welling of joy that's the juice for me, man. That's like what keeps me going. And if the answer is no, then I have to figure out a way to step away from that, or start to move away from it. Maybe it's slow, maybe it's not a whoosh, but
Hmm.
maybe it's slowly into some things that I go, wow, I wake up and I'm pumped. Like that's what I want. I want to wake up and not go, oh crap, I have to do that thing. Like I
Hmm.
want to wake up and go, I can't wait to like dig into that today because it's gonna, like I
Yeah.
want to wake up with that excitement. That's everything to me.
Yeah, that's so spot on. That is so spot on. The So I got to say this too, man. Like the information that you're sharing right now, so you gave me some good advice and things to think about. So I'm going to share with you. Like you said you've been on some talks and things like that. I would I would say that like this, if this is something you enjoy doing, which hopefully I'm enjoying this immensely.
Yeah,
Um,
man, me too.
this is really dope, really, really cool stuff. Like there's so much that you could do with this knowledge and information and your ability to articulate it in a genuine way. There's like so much that can be done with that I'll just put out there. Maybe some of these talks might be even part of like your what you're doing, with the bass on your channel right now, like little tidbits, maybe like 80% music and like 20% some development or encouragement or whatever. But that is people feel uplifted. Like I'm gonna leave this conversation feeling great. And I really do appreciate the fact that this is what's cool to me. This is two interviews in a row now. There's been several other ones as well. But last week I interviewed someone who's a co-founder of the most popular music app called Synth One. The Audio Kit is the name of the platform, right?
Yeah.
The company. And I've seen some of his content, and I had him on last week. That episode's coming out tomorrow, Thursday. So another thing I need to, after today, continue editing and all that, but I'm excited about it. And it's really an amazing thing to be able to connect with someone instantly on these episodes. And it's something that I don't downplay for a second, because what I'm learning is if I'm enjoying if I'm enjoying the conversation, if my guest is enjoying it and they feel comfortable and they feel good about giving back and just maybe inspire themselves as well, and obviously my audience is gonna enjoy it as well and be inspired by it. That is such a significant thing for me. It's such a really huge thing for me, like feeling some like sense of accomplishment and some purpose and just feeling good about that content. And so like last week, the person was mentioning that these episodes like an hour long, right? So like I put them on YouTube, and some people watch them, a lot of people don't, because who is Kevin, and who is Ian, who is this person,
Of
right?
course.
So what I've been really thinking about, and this is it kind of has to happen, because the content in these episodes are so like on on point, like, and it's such like, even in this conversation, there's so many pieces that need to be used as sort of sound bites. Like, here is this 1 minute part of the conversation, and that of course takes work to sift through and do all that stuff. But maybe what makes a lot more sense for me is not thinking about, oh, I need to make sure every week I have a guest on every single week so that I can have like a backlog, and I can, maybe what makes sense is take a step back from scheduling and say, man, I have some really, really, really great content here. Let me figure a way to strategically get this, if it's shrunken down, but get parts of it like on Instagram so that it's shareable and so people can really benefit from it. And that's
Dude,
what I'm thinking about.
clipping this stuff is huge. I think like whenever I get a video back from SBL and it's all bass stuff, I chop it up into bits, and then I have content for Instagram
Yeah.
for weeks.
Yeah.
that it's huge, and it will drive traffic to the other long form stuff. Of course, man, like people don't know you, they don't know me, they're not going to watch an hour of us talking, like that's
Mhm.
insane.
Mhm.
But if you had a 30-second clip up on your Instagram, right, like, and someone goes, oh, that's cool, like I maybe want to, that will drive to your other platforms.
I want to ask you a music question, just a little bit about yourself. So, if you
Yeah.
had a chance to go to a dream concert of yours with 5 artists that are going to be performing, living or dead, who is gonna be at your concert, Ian?
5 artists.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it's interesting. The one that first pops up for me is a band called the Midnight, and they're alive.
Nice.
They're very much alive. I would love to see that band. They've been super influential to me in the last couple years. A record called Kids. It's amazing. It's like this '80s nostalgia, um, and like a synthwave aesthetic musically that I love. It's very cool. Also, Bjork would be there, and
Nice.
she's alive too. I
Yep.
love Bjork very much. Um, I'm trying to think of who else. Geez, man, that's a great question. I feel like so on the spot. All right. Because he passed, I love this band Rush growing up, and Neil Peart just passed away. And I only got to see them twice. Love to see them too.
Uh-huh.
Um, Also, there is a hip hop group from England called The Streets. The
Okay.
Streets would be there, absolutely, 100%. And I'm also going to say James Brown, early James Brown, when Bootsy was 19 years old in the band playing bass. That's it.
Okay. Nice. That's so cool. So I love asking that question. I haven't heard of, well, I haven't heard of 3 of the 5 artists. So Bjork and James Brown, of course. So I need to check out the other 3 for sure.
Dude, check out the Midnight. There's a record called Kids that's just incredible to me.
Nice.
And who else did I say?
The
I don't
Rush
even
as
know,
well.
man. Oh, Rush.
Rush
Rush is
and
like a Rush is like a prog rock band from the '70s. They had sort of like success was like musos '70s, '80s, '90s.
yeah,
They were a big deal for me. Yeah, man. That's
that's
it's a great
cool.
band.
I
Oh, and
love
the Streets.
the
Dude, the
street.
Streets are a trip, man. You should, like, if you check out the Streets, check out A Grand Don't Come for Free is the name of the record. It's a concept record, and it's incredible, and uh very bizarre. Probably unlike any hip hop that you've ever heard. At least it was
Wow.
for me.
I'm gonna
Really
check that
cool.
out today for sure.
All right.
That's such a, as a music lover of, creating and of listening to, there's something really magical and special about getting about hearing about someone's top bands or top artists that I've some of which I haven't even heard of, and even specifically like certain songs. Like if you give me those 2 songs, like I will listen to them. And I love that music is so ubiquitous. Someone was asking a question, one of my students, and then we'll wrap. They were asking, why do we have to take music class in school? And it kind of came randomly because it was during a math tutoring session. So it was an interesting question for me to get. I don't even know if he knows that I, am this much into music. But what I thought about on the spot was just how universal it is, and how, like, I gave him the example of Michael Jackson and said, like, okay, if Thriller or if Billie Jean or something came on and we're listening to it here, and someone overseas who speaks a completely different language, if they hear that same song, like we'll be able to connect on that immediately and dance
Yep.
to it or vibe to it or something. And that's such a beautiful thing. I think it's so cool.
Dude, I don't think about that enough, actually. That how, like, you hear forever music is the universal language, and it becomes just this sort of like a saying on the wall where you're like, like, treat others like you want to be treated. We've heard it a million times, but it's so true. And then when you see really specific examples of that, of like people connecting that don't speak the same language, but they speak the language of music, or even if they don't speak even if they're not a musician,
Mhm,
everybody understands it, man. Everybody understands a groove. You hear
mhm.
that opening drum groove to Billie Jean, that's it.
Yeah,
Everyone in the world understands what
yeah.
that, everybody just wants to start. You know what I mean? Like, it's incredible. and
It
and the
is.
power, yeah, I think that is incredibly powerful, and I'm sure that's why I just want to keep making music for the rest of my life. That
Mhm,
connection,
mhm,
that's the connection that we all have,
mhm.
regardless of who we are, where we are, what we speak, you know.
That will always have. Man, that's so
That's
cool.
it.
Man, I just want to say again, like I'm so appreciative. I can talk to you for another several hours. I think there's still so much like information that you have, and I'm just super excited about seeing what continues on your end as well. And I'm so happy to hear like that's such a great thing, like for you to have reach that sort of level in terms of doing something that you love to do and kind of being intentional about it. It's very inspiring, and it makes me happy to hear that you've been able to accomplish that. So kudos on that, buddy.
Thank you, man. Hey, can I give one last thing to anybody that has maybe watched this up to this point?
Yeah, please.
Or something to maybe clip for later.
Yeah.
Let me say this. So many people think that their life isn't interesting, or that what they do is not going to be exciting to talk about, or that they don't have the big gig, so they can't talk about what they love because they're not like qualified to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say to anybody that's watching, it's not about that. It's not about credential. It's about how you talk about your life. It's how you talk about your perspective. And everybody's perspective is different and valid. And if you think about your life and wonder about how could I explain this maybe very mundane task
Mm-hmm.
in a way that would be interesting to a group of people, that's the deal. So it's not so much about like, oh, well, what I do, I don't know if anybody dig it. It's like, how can you talk about it that might bring some value to someone else? So one quick example, I talk with like kids that are just getting out of music school, and so many of them are asking me stuff about my experience, but then I'm turning around and asking them, what's it like being in music school during a pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there were an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid that was like, hey, check it out, like, for anyone coming up, this is what this has been like, this is what has changed,
Mm-hmm.
now I feel like this is going to affect music in this way,
Yeah.
I would pay attention to that,
Yeah.
because that is a perspective that I don't have. So think about, here's what I'm trying to say. Think about your life and think about your perspective and how it's different than even the superstar, or the people that have it better, or the people that are more successful. How is your story different? How is your upbringing different? How is the cheap instrument you play different, but somehow like so dope?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. Talk about what you have learned and the truths for you. And then I'm going to watch your channel and I'm going to start asking you questions. You know, that's what's up.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's your perspective, and it's you making a decision that talking about your perspective and your journey and your upbringing and your passions is not stupid. It's not silly. It's not meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible because you have your own thing, and it might unlock something for someone else.
Mm-hmm. I love it, man. I love it. That definitely spoke to me, and I'm sure that's going to resonate. That is absolutely a soundbite right there, for sure, for sure. Oh man,
Cool.
I'm like I said, super appreciative and excited to just continue, seeing you on the timeline, checking in, seeing how things are going, and just kind of seeing, where the relationship goes. Because I'm glad I reached out. I knew there was a reason for it. Somehow I kind of felt like it was going to be a dope conversation, and lo and behold, man. So thank you so much for taking the time out.
Dude, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. It's fun to chat with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'll catch you next time, buddy. Have a great rest of your day,
All right.
and I'll see you next time.
Take care, Kevin.
Later on.
All right, man.
All right.